Hey everyone, welcome to our Disreputable podcast. This is episode 4.
Yeah.
My name is Brandon. I'm here with Dean Curry and his twin brother David Curry.
Always good to have Dave with us.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I know you're hoping for a fight between us or something.
Yeah, a knockout, man.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. This is going to be good.
Yeah, well, obviously I'm partial because I'm so proud of Dave and the work he's done. But what's interesting, and I want to cover leadership stuff. I want to talk about global issues because you're involved in global issues. But when I know every step of your career, from building fences to garbage man to youth pastor to you were a missionary to South America for how long?
7 years.
7 years.
Wow.
You ran a rescue mission for 7 years.
Yeah, for 9 years.
9 years.
Mhm.
And now for how long have you been working?
I've been 7 years with Open Doors. Open Doors, for those that don't know, helps persecuted Christians, places like North Korea, Somalia, Iran, Iraq, and advocates for them on the public policy stage.
Real quick, before we get into the lessons and all the, where would people find more info?
Yeah.
They can go to opendoorsusa.org, which tells the stories, but also has some statistics as to what's happening around the world. But really, it's about connecting with your brothers and sisters, your family that's facing persecution, maybe in prison for their faith, and finding not just how you can help them, but the lessons from their faith, because people like that who really have to count the cost, and the cost is great in some
Right.
cases, everything. Those are inspirational people, but there's also things you can apply to your life and the lessons and the challenges you're facing.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
some people they're climbing the career ladder.
Yeah.
You're a little farther along than a lot of people that are watching, hopefully sharing. This is going to get shared around.
Yeah.
What's the common thread between all these jobs? You've owned your own business building fences and decks, and you were a garbage man, and you were a youth pastor, and now you're running this organization that's in 60 plus countries.
Yeah.
How do you tether all that together?
Well, I don't know that there is a common thread, but I do know that all of it rolls up together. It's like they're stacked. And all of the lessons I've used. I remember, you're going to think this is funny, but my first job was working at Taco Bell, which, by the way, I was
Nice.
fired. And then I worked when I was 16 or whatever. I moved over to McDonald's, also fired.
Were you
but-
really? I forgot.
Yeah. So, but the interesting thing about that was then years later, when I was running a rescue mission, the decades later,
Wow.
we were serving thousands of people every day. And even though I only worked a few months in those jobs because I was fired, all of that.
But you know a
every
little bit about food service.
I knew a little bit about it. I'd
Yeah,
seen
wow.
how services and freezers and all these
Right.
kinds of things. And then here we are serving thousands of meals every single day for a decade. And it's just super helpful. Everything, the weird journey, you see it in the story of Moses, but it's also true in my life, probably your life. And
Yeah.
the weird journeys that God takes leaders on. It seems
Very few
meandering.
straight lines.
It's not some unbroken path of climbing. It's just experiences you accumulate, trying to be faithful, mistakes made, some victories, and before long you're useful in a really interesting way.
Yeah.
What makes a great man? These bookshelves are full of stories, people now dead, that society would consider great men, great women. You've been around leaders in North Korea who are running underground churches. You've been in the vice president's residence, and you've been in the White House. You've met secretaries of state, presidents. What makes a great leader?
Well, that's a great question. I admire different things about different people. Brother Andrew was the gentleman who started Open Doors. I encourage anybody who hasn't read his book or looked up his life,
The book is called
The God's Smuggler, to read that. He decided in the 65 years ago to start smuggling Bibles himself in a Volkswagen Bug
Wow.
into the Soviet Union. And exceptionally dangerous. He's one of the greatest people I've had a chance to meet, and he is totally a contrary person. He's not a rule follower, obviously, and you can sort of pick that up in the narrative of his story. But when you're with somebody like that, I guess the greatness is in the courage and boldness to break the mold. Other people I've met, it's the strength of their character and the consistency and integrity of how they do things. I mean, I think God uses certain kinds of people for certain kinds of things. Let me give you an example. Brother Andrew's best friend was Corrie ten Boom. Again, somebody who, if you don't know who she is, you should know.
Yeah, her book is in this shelf.
It's The Hiding Place. I've been to her home where she hid Jews from the Nazis.
In what city is that?
In Haarlem, in the Netherlands.
Wow.
But when I was talking to Andrew about Corrie ten Boom, he said to me, now Andrew himself is very much a rebel, and he said Corrie ten Boom was the most difficult person he knew, and he meant that in an affectionate way.
Right.
So there's a tendency to think of great people as all in the mold of what I would think of as a Billy Graham. They're all rule followers. They're all people who paint within the lines. But I can tell you there are lots of different kinds of people.
Yeah.
God uses them in various ways based on their temperaments and their gifts and
That's
even their
encouraging.
mistakes. Right.
Right.
That's encouraging because you do think. I mean, that ought to be encouraging to you because you're not exactly a rule.
Thank
A
you.
rule follower.
Right.
But I mean, that's why we call this disreputable.
Yeah.
Because not everybody fits the. Nobody's gonna elect anybody in this room for pope.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and for example, Andrew, his heart was for the lost in an exceptional way. So when everybody wanted after 9/11 to kill bin Laden, he was trying to contact the Taliban in order to meet with him and talk to him about Jesus.
Wow.
He talked to Yasser Arafat about Jesus. He talked to all of the rascals of his generation about Jesus and introduced them. That is hard for us to get our mind around.
Yeah.
It's really hard, but this is the stuff of which greatness is made. It's finding your unique gift and your unique journey, as weird and as winding as it may be, and saying, what does all of this stack up to? So in a sense, I can't answer the greatness question until you know the person and you see how it's manifested in their life.
I like that.
Which is kind of why when you're applying it personally, you're saying, what are the things I have going on and I've experienced that I haven't yet learned from or that I have to address, and that's not separate from your greatness or what could be. You got to work through it.
How much uncertainty was in this new opportunity, which now has been 7 years, but of Open Doors USA? I'm sitting here listening to you going, I know nothing really, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are probably going like, I mean, you're shedding so much information and history that I'm like, oh my goodness. Did you know all of this going into it? You've been in it 7 years, and now it feels like you're
I had read the story of Brother Andrew and God's Smuggler, which gives you a sense of what it means to be a secret agent for Jesus.
right.
The world we live in now with Islamic terrorism, with surveillance and tracking that never existed 60 years ago, complicates it. The policy things you need to know, all these kinds of things. But always uncertainty has, in the leadership role, has to do with how you help a organization to first stabilize, survive, thrive.
Nice.
They're pretty common, themes. The subject matter that I've had to dive into to know a lot about North Korea, but at the same time be able to talk compellingly about Sudan or Somalia. They're totally different subjects, totally different parts of the world, and do interviews on major media on any subject they may ask.
Absolutely.
That's hard, but that's not uncertainty. That's just a challenge, an intellectual challenge.
How do you?
Yeah, good.
Let me give you another angle from this, because when I know because you and I chat regularly that you're meeting with people that a lot of people hate.
Sure.
Right.
You're meeting with some political leaders on both sides of the aisle.
So Republicans are mad that you're meeting with these people, and Democrats are mad that you're meeting with these people. And then internationally, you're meeting with disreputable people. And some of the people that are doing your work are breaking the law. They're smuggling Bibles across borders, and they're getting arrested. One day I called you and I said, how you doing? And you were almost in tears because your whole team, underground team in a country, was arrested and you never heard from them again.
Right.
Talk about that.
It's good.
Since this is a public setting, I would say Open Doors never does anything illegal. Just want to qualify that. We never do anything uncivil. Of course, this is the body of Christ trying to have access to the Bible
Sure.
and study the Bible. So governments need not fear us in that sense.
Right.
So I guess the experience of knowing what's going on and having to deal with difficult people it's like the process of getting into lifting weights, where what feels like a lot of weights in month number 1, not so much in month number 2 or year number 2 or year number 3, which is true in any leadership role, right? You just get used to lifting a certain amount. You get used to interacting and having a certain level of resistance, having a certain amount of people hate you or dislike you or misconstrue
You
what
get
you
hate
say.
letters?
Sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes from my friends. The most negative feedback I've ever gotten is, speaking out on something that had to do with supporting people in the Middle East, believers in the Middle East, and have people who I would maybe naturally associate with, sent thousands and thousands of negative letters within 24, 48 hours. And it's good. It's good to experience that every once in a while.
Do you have a philosophy or a way of thinking on dealing with haters? Reason why I ask is because we live in this world. It's like haters and all this kind of stuff. I mean, enemies, haters, how do you view them? And then do you have a way of just kind of working through that?
I'm naturally sort of drawn in by that sort of thing. If I know
In a positive, you don't mind.
You like it?
No, actually, I mean, if I know that somebody is yakking about me in some negative way, I can meditate on that for a while and turn it over. So thus, I try not to interact with it any more than I have to,
Gotcha.
so that I can just stay productive.
Right.
But I am a fighter. I think, if that's what you're sort of hinting at, but that has more to do if it's disassociated from me. But if someone's challenging my character, I can get defensive. And so, for example, on social media or something, like, I don't interact on it.
Right.
I have someone else deal with it. I just don't want to. I don't need to know, all the specifics. But of course, a lot gets through to you anyway. But
Sure.
I don't want to live in that sewer all the
Right.
time.
Yeah. Good.
So tell me how a world-class leader uses a day. What does an average day look like for you, and what would you recommend for people that are watching? They're running a car business, they're raising a family, some of them are employees, some of them are employers. But what does a day look like for a great day for you?
Well, a good day for me would start early, but that has more to do with the fact that I'm an early riser, and I'm not very good after about 3:00 in the afternoon.
So when you say early, what are we talking?
I would almost always be at work by 6:00 or 6.
So you're up 4:30.
But remember, I can talk to Europe and to
Yeah.
the East Coast, so I always have things I can do no matter when I wake up.
Right.
But I like to start early. But actually, I think the more general idea is to know your own rhythms, which is
good.
something I'm always testing against. Like when am I at my best? What do I feel like I have the capacity to do well right now?
Yeah,
I just focus better in the morning. So I can write in the morning, the harder meetings in the morning.
Yeah.
In the afternoons, it's not that I don't do something, but I would need to, do one-on-ones or more social engagements that don't require me to be so focused all the time. That has happened over a long period of time where in a sense, perfected it, but you're always working it and trying to stay in the zone so that you don't waste time, which I think is obviously the challenge of any leader now.
Right.
It's like when you get distracted or sort of get into an unproductive state, it's easier to just kind of flip through whatever and look through emails, but you feel like you're working, but you're not working.
Right.
That's what I have to stay away from so that I don't fritter away my time.
Right. Do you believe in balance?
I don't think I do. I mean, what I do like is to have a meaningful, to put the most meaningful things first. So obviously my kids and my family relationships were going to have a higher priority than anything else.
Sure.
I encourage people who work with me, I would never encourage them to throw over their kids or a meeting or go to a game in order to do some sort of middle important task at work.
Right.
So, and I certainly try to manage that myself,
Yeah.
imperfectly.
But you go hard. I think most people
Right.
would look at your schedule and go, this guy doesn't have a lot of balance. You're not putting in 8-hour days, 5 days a week.
But I take days off. When I shut off, I totally shut off and relax.
You've turned your phone off?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, as I said, I don't have public social media. I don't spend lots of, I will have weekends. I'll take vacations, So I think balance is funny because it's never 50-50. The word suggests that you're
Right.
kind of half and half.
Right.
I want to be fully engaged when I'm at work. When I come home, I want to be fully engaged
Mm-hmm.
at home.
That's good.
And the problem is if you're not fully engaged at home, then when you get to work, you got to feel like you got to call and touch base and balance out whatever you didn't do. And then you're not really engaged at work. So
Right.
then when you get home, you got to check your email. It's a mess.
So you have you had dozens of employees when you ran the rescue mission.
Right.
Yeah.
You have employees now around the country, around the world.
Well, I'm directly responsible for 55 people.
Okay. But you're
And I've had more.
interacting with people on different continents.
Yeah.
What makes a great colleague for
Good
you?
question.
I like people who have an easy temperament, who aren't going to be. I don't like to work with overly dramatic people. This is just me. As I describe it, I want to sit down with people who we're going to have a frank and open conversation about whatever the subject is and disagree, and then close the book on that meeting and say, let's go to lunch or let's
Right.
talk about the game.
That
I don't
sounds
want to
funny.
work at a peak of conflict or frustration.
Yeah, but you're in kind of a dramatic work. I mean, people
Which is all the more reason to kind of find a nice, easy rhythm with your partners.
Right.
And if in the long term, if I can't find a balance with somebody, then we're not going to work together for very long.
Okay, give me something else other than easy.
I like people who are in the improvement game, because if you're not, the things that we are dealing with now in leadership, social media, data, surveillance, all of those things did not exist in their current form 10 years ago.
Sure.
So you have to learn and I can take that and sort of forward think that we don't really know what the challenges are going to be a decade from now. So if we don't have learners,
Right.
I don't need people that have a specific set of answers that apply to everything forever. I need people who are smart enough to learn, to solve, to think, because we don't know sometimes we don't even know what the right questions are, not let alone the answers. And that sounds trite, but if you think about it, it's really true.
Mm-hmm.
What is the next big thing? How are you going to talk to a lot of people? Well, get on social media, get on this and that. Well, really, isn't that clutter now? Isn't that a bunch of noise?
It's like white
It's going
noise.
to cut
Yeah.
through, right?
Yeah.
So in any endeavor that people think they know the answer, I would
Right.
say they don't. You may not even know what the right question is.
Hmm.
You have to be learning, critical thinker, these kinds of things. But if you find somebody who can do all that and have an easy temperament, the people who succeed, they're close to me, are almost always what I would call easy to get along with.
But that's not, you're not describing what I would think of as magic. There's, you know what I mean? Like that special or
The X
something
factor.
transcendent.
Gets it.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how hard is it to find somebody who's really exceptional at what they do and who's also pleasant to work with? That's pretty great, man.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's different. Maybe some people like to work with people who are really super dramatic and at a peak of anxiety, and this brings out the best. Hey, more power to you.
Sure.
But when you're interviewing me, I got to tell you,
Yeah.
I don't want to work with people who are going to be
Yeah.
a lot of drama, because you end up with so many situations where they're subtracting energy,
Right.
and that to me is not worth it. But that's a temperament thing. That's just David.
55 employees. I say to myself, how does one lead 55 employees do you lead it on a personal level? How do you set it up structurally? You don't, if there's some things you can't explain
Yeah,
totally,
no,
that's fine.
I just work with 3 or 4 people who are close to me, who I pour myself into and my ideas and philosophy,
Right.
and try to create a situation where they can do their jobs well.
Right.
And particularly because I'm on the road a lot.
Right.
So I may be gone for weeks at a time, and I'm not going to be in the house. I won't be in the office. So when I am in the office, it's about being available and spend a lot of time in the common spaces and talking to people and
Sure.
the social elements to leadership. But most of the time, I'm dealing with 3 or 4 people.
Yeah.
And just trying to hire people, like I said, who are easy to work with. Ask a question, and then if they're really exceptional, you don't have to tell them what to do. They're doing it. And
Sure.
You're just trying to help them.
Let me give you. This will be my last question,
Yeah.
Brandon, and then you can wrap it up however you want.
Okay.
I guess it's kind of a 2-part question. I know you've written how many books,
I've written 5 books.
and so what I'd like you to say is, what's one book that people should buy of yours that you're most proud of, and why? And then the second thing is, what are you growing into now? You mentioned you like people who are
Yeah. Good question.
learners, or I forget how you phrased it. I like the way you said it, but what is David doing right now that we could do?
Well, I wrote a book to answer the first part of the question called First Aid for Enablers. And I wrote it when I was at the rescue mission. And the idea is to try to give people some initial steps on how they deal with relationships where they might be enabling bad behavior. They're stepping in between somebody's negative habits and the consequences of that habit. They're sort of cushioning that. It can happen with kids or spouses or whatever.
Sure.
And a lot of people think of it in terms of like if you have children who are addicts or something, but it's everybody.
Right.
We all do it. I do it. I wrote a book on it, but I do it and I notice it.
That's
all
your best-selling book.
So I would recommend people look at that. There's a little work study. It's on Amazon. A
Nice.
study book.
First Aid Enablers.
First Aid for Enablers.
For enablers. Okay.
It's just the introductory concepts, but some great ones. What was the second part of the question?
What are you learning now?
I've spent a lot of time, the subject matter stuff, I'm spending a lot of time thinking about certain countries. I was just in China, trying to understand surveillance, artificial intelligence, and how that country is creating a system that will efficiently oppress people. It's a crazy idea, but I recommend people look at some of the interviews or whatever I've done online on this subject. So I'm spending a lot of time on trying to understand the technical parts of it, meaning I'm having meetings with people who understand artificial intelligence, who understand how data is tracked, who understand how facial recognition works. It's really an interesting subject, and it will be something. Are you worried about how your privacy is affected by Facebook and all this sort of stuff?
Sure.
I mean, most people have thought about it somewhat. Imagine scenarios where a government, the communist system,
Wow.
is tracking you everywhere you go and knows that Dean has gone to this church 5 times, 6 times, 10 times. Why is he going so often? Why is he going to 3 different churches? So there's some interesting stuff there. I'm studying that, trying to understand it. Anything technical right now.
Yeah. Closing thought from to the camera. We have business owners, college students. We have moms, dads, all sorts of people. In the leadership vein, you mentioned something at the very beginning of this, from your journey from Taco Bell to now Open Doors, of it just kind of being this roadmap, if you will, not a rail. Maybe there's somebody and they just kind of feel like they're at level 3 and of this journey, and they just kind of feel like they're stuck and they're not happy, and they're looking for what could be next. And then what would be one thing that you would just kind of say to them in this moment from your perspective?
Whenever anybody's telling you their journey, they're giving you the 10-minute version of it, where they go from Taco Bell to something of interest and importance in 10 minutes. But the reality is, it takes forever.
Sure.
So don't be discouraged. Whatever you got in front of you, just do it well. I can remember when I graduated from Bible college, I could not buy a job in the ministry. There's a wonderful guy who gave me a job as a garbage man for about 1.5 years. I was a good garbage man. Yeah.
When you said that at first, I thought you were playing it a little bit.
No,
And I was like,
a
oh,
good
here we go. This is good.
And in that is the lesson. Because so there were days when I thought to myself, I am going to be a garbage man forever. It's an honorable job. It's a good, honest work. But I didn't sense it was my calling in life.
Right.
But all of that stuff, if you're doing it well, again, that's how it stacks up on top of one another. I learned things there that I will take with me forever, and that I still apply to this day on how to deal with certain kinds of situations, or the value of hustle or schedules, or all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I was working in the rescue mission business, we had addicts, prostitutes, people who would not bathe for 1.5 years or 2 years, whatever. You walk in to help these people and they smell and they're difficult or whatever. A lot of people are way too cool to walk up and give those people a hug. And when I was in that situation, I always used to remind myself, if I had a suit on and somebody walked up and they were dirty, I would come to them. I'm a garbage man. What difference does it make? I'm going to hug these people.
I love that, dude.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So everything.
That's
everything.
awesome.
I often think to myself, you're a garbage man. You're capable of doing this job, right?
Yeah.
So it all works out. I would encourage people with that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening.
Truly.
Thanks for sharing. Make sure you share. Dean
Share.
gave us last
3
time
people.
3 people. So make sure you share. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.